Chapter 1. Allen Iverson, the warrior without a crown. He was barely 6 feet tall, but he walked like a giant. In a league of giants, Allen Iverson didn't just survive, he dominated. Not with size, but with heart. Not with power, but with fire. Iverson wasn't built to carry a franchise, but he did. Every night. He wasn't supposed to take the Philadelphia 76ers to the NBA Finals, but he did. He wasn't supposed to win an MVP, become an icon, or shake up the culture of the NBA, but he did. Because Allen Iverson never played the game the way it was supposed to be played. He played it the way it needed to be played. The 2001 season was his masterpiece. That year, Iverson averaged 31.1 points per game, and willed a gritty defensive Sixers team to the top of the East. Every night, he took the hits, drove into the trees, got back up and did it again. By the time the playoffs arrived, he wasn't just carrying a team, he was dragging them behind him, and in the finals, facing a prime Shaq and Kobe-led Lakers team on a perfect playoff run, Iverson gave us one of the most iconic performances in NBA history. Game 1. In LA. The Sixers weren't supposed to win, but Iverson dropped 48 points, stepped over Tyronn Lue, and stunned the world. That moment, the step over, was more than a highlight, it was a statement. A defiant act from a player who had been doubted his entire life, but the Lakers were too deep, too dominant. The Sixers would lose the series in 5 games. And for Iverson, that would be as close as he'd ever get to a championship. Still, he never ran, never begged to be traded, never jumped to a super team. He stayed in Philly, took the punishment, and gave everything to the city that embraced his flaws, as fiercely as they loved his fight. Allen Iverson didn't win a ring, but rings don't define warriors. He inspired a generation of underdogs. He changed the culture, cornrows, tattoos, fearless expression. He made small guards believe they could be giants. And though he never held the trophy, he held something else. The respect of every player who ever faced him. The love of every fan who ever watched him. Because Allen Iverson didn't just play basketball, he survived it, and made it unforgettable. Chapter 2. Charles Barkley. Dominance denied. Charles Barkley wasn't supposed to dominate the way he did. He was too short for a power forward, too bulky for a wing, and too unconventional for the system. But none of that mattered. Once the ball went up, Barkley played like a force of nature, at just 6'4" inches, maybe 6'6" inches if you're being generous. Barkley routinely out-rebounded 7-footers. He bullied bigger men, ran the floor like a guard, and scored with power, finesse and sheer will. He wasn't pretty, but he was relentless. The round mound of rebound didn't just hustle, he exploded. In 1993, Barkley was at the peak of his powers. After being traded from the Sixers to the Phoenix Suns, he won the league MVP, and led his team to a league-best 62-20 record. That year, he averaged 25.6 points, 12.2 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists per game, all while carrying the Suns on his back through the brutal Western Conference. Then came the finals. His shot at the crown, but standing in his way was Michael Jordan, and the Chicago Bulls. Barkley gave it everything. Game after game, he battled with Jordan, scoring, rebounding, fighting, leading. The series went 6 games, and Barkley was brilliant. He put up 27 points, 13 rebounds and 5.5 assists per game in the series. But Jordan was Jordan, dropping 41 a night, refusing to be denied. And just like that, Barkley's best shot at a ring slipped away. The years that followed were filled with good teams and great moments, especially in Houston, where he joined forces with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. But the magic of '93 never returned. Injuries piled up, time moved on, and Barkley, one of the greatest power forwards to ever play, ended his career without a championship. But make no mistake, Charles Barkley was a winner, a competitor, a presence. He redefined what a power forward could be. He inspired players like Draymond Green and Zion Williamson. He fought every night like it was his last. He's remembered not just for what he said, though he was never short on words, but for what he did on the court. And if you ask the legends,
the most unique player that ever played basketball. His ability to be 6'4" and play power forward, we all know that that's unique. and he is 6'4", he's not 6'5". And his ability to create double teams. I always say there's about 4 or 5 guys in the NBA.
What comes to mind when you kind of see
Oh, snap. So this first joint is of Charles Barkley. This is in '96 when he actually pulled Stephen out to the side after they beat us, actually swept us. And we were just so eager to be in the playoffs and so happy to be in the playoffs.
Chapter 3, Steve Nash. The genius, who deserved more. Steve Nash never dunked in an NBA game. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't physically imposing, but when he had the ball in his hands, time seemed to slow down, and the game bent to his will. Nash was a basketball genius, a master conductor in sneakers, orchestrating some of the most beautiful offense the league has ever seen. He wasn't just great, he was revolutionary. During his back-to-back MVP seasons, in 2005 and 2006 with the Phoenix Suns, Nash led the 7 seconds or less offense, a style that would later reshape the entire NBA. Under head coach Mike D'Antoni, Nash ran a high-octane system that prioritized pace, spacing, and efficiency. With Amara Stoudemire rolling to the rim, Sean Marion flying in transition, and shooters everywhere, Nash turned every possession into art. But it wasn't just the system, it was him, the vision, the touch, the timing, the trust. He made average players look good and good players look like stars. Nash led the league in assists 5 times, and finished with career shooting splits of 49% from the field, 43% from 3, and 90% from the line, the gold standard of shooting. But his greatest skill wasn't statistical, it was instinctual. He knew what would happen before it did. Yet despite the brilliance, the leadership, the transformation of the game, Nash never won a ring. In 2005, his Suns lost to the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals, the eventual champions. In 2006, they fell short again. Then in 2007, came heartbreak. That year, the Suns looked poised to beat the Spurs, until a cheap shot on Nash by Robert Horry sparked a sideline altercation. Amara Stoudemire and Boris Diaw took a few steps off the bench. Chapter 4, Reggie Miller, Loyalty over Legacy. Reggie Miller didn't chase super teams. He didn't jump cities in search of rings. He stayed in Indiana, in the same jersey, with the same mission, to bring a championship to the Pacers. He came close, painfully close, but the crown always slipped through his fingers. Still, he never left. For 18 seasons, Reggie Miller was the face of the Indiana Pacers, lean, wiry, and tough as nails. He wasn't built like a star, but he had a killer's heart, and a shooter's touch that was pure ice. He was one of the most clutch performers the league has ever seen. He didn't just want the ball in the final seconds, he demanded it. Miller's most iconic moment came in 1995, at Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, 8 points, 9 seconds, 1 man. In a span of blink and you'll miss it seconds, Reggie hit 2 threes, stole the inbounds pass, and sank 2 free throws, silencing the New York crowd, and stunning the Knicks. It wasn't just a comeback, it was an assassination. He became the villain in New York, and he loved it. But Reggie Miller was more than just highlights. He was consistent, loyal, and endlessly tough. He hit over 2,500 three-pointers before it was fashionable. He was a pioneer of movement shooting, running defenders ragged through endless screens. He made the off-ball artful, a weapon. His best shot at a title came in 2000, with a strong supporting cast, including Jalen Rose and Dale Davis. The Pacers reached the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. Miller was 34. This was his moment, his legacy on the line. But it was Kobe and Shaq's time. The Pacers fought, but the Lakers overwhelmed. The series ended in 6. Reggie's dream faded, not in disgrace, but in a hard-fought loss to greatness. Even as age slowed him, he never gave up. No shortcuts, no trades, no chasing rings, just Reggie and Indiana, till the end. He retired in 2005, never having lifted the trophy, but he left with something just as rare: unwavering respect. In a sport often ruled by transactions and titles, Reggie Miller stood for something deeper: loyalty, longevity, and the power of belief. He may not have won a ring, but he never lost who he was. And in the heart of Indiana, that's worth everything. Chapter 5, Patrick Ewing, the Forgotten Titan. In the heart of the world's biggest city, under the brightest lights in basketball, Patrick Ewing stood tall, literally and figuratively. For 15 seasons, he was the anchor of the New York Knicks, a 7-foot warrior, with a soft touch, a fierce scowl, and a body that carried the weight of a franchise, night after night. He was consistent, relentless, and proud, but in a cruel twist of timing, he played his entire prime in the shadows of giants. Ewing was the #1 overall pick in 1985, the prize of the league's first ever draft lottery. New York got their superstar, and Madison Square Garden got its gladiator. From the moment he stepped on the hardwood, Ewing delivered: mid-range jumpers, rim protection, rebounding, toughness. He did everything a franchise big man was supposed to do, and he did it all in a city where expectations are never low. Through the late 80s and 90s, Ewing was the Knicks. He dragged them to playoff appearances year after year. He made 11 All-Star teams, won Rookie of the Year, and became one of the most respected centers in a golden era for big men. An era that featured Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Dikembe Mutombo. But respect doesn't always lead to rings, and Ewing's prime collided with a dynasty. Every time he clawed his way deep into the playoffs, a familiar face stood in his path: Michael Jordan. The Bulls were the mountain Ewing could never quite summit. In '93, after a thrilling series against the Hornets, the Knicks faced the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. New York led the series 2-0. Then Jordan took over. Another dream gone. Then in 1994, finally, with Jordan out of the league, Ewing got his shot. He led the Knicks to the NBA Finals against the Rockets. The battles with Hakeem were legendary. Two elite big men in a chess match of footwork and finesse. The series went to 7 games, but the Knicks fell just short. Again, injuries began to mount, and as the team around him changed, Ewing aged. He would never get back, never get that one moment to hold the trophy and silence the doubts. But Patrick Ewing never ran from the fight. He showed up, played hurt, took the blame, owned the pressure, and in a city that demands greatness, he gave everything he had. He never won a ring, but he never lost his pride. Patrick Ewing was a titan, even if history forgets how much he carried. Chapter 6, Chris Paul, the leader still searching. Few players in NBA history have controlled a basketball game quite like Chris Paul. They call him the point god, for a reason, because when he's on the court, he's not just playing, he's orchestrating, dictating, leading, precision passes, clutch mid-range jumpers, elite defense, and the ability to make everyone around him better. That's been the Chris Paul experience for nearly 2 decades. But despite all of that, he's still searching. Paul entered the league in 2005, drafted by the New Orleans Hornets. From the start, he was different. His basketball IQ was off the charts. He wasn't the biggest or the fastest, but he saw plays before they happened. He led New Orleans to relevance, nearly taking them to the conference finals in 2008, and gave the franchise hope every time he stepped on the floor. Then came the Clippers, Lob City. Alongside Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, Paul turned a struggling franchise into a perennial playoff contender. Flashy dunks, highlight reels, and deep postseason runs. But year after year, injuries, heartbreak, or collapse struck at the worst possible moment. The core never made a conference finals, and the window quietly closed. In Houston, he finally got close. Paired with James Harden, Paul led the Rockets to 65 wins in 2018, and pushed the Golden State Warriors to the brink. Up 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals, they were 1 win away from the finals. Then, hamstring. Paul went down in Game 5. He never played in Game 6 or 7. The Rockets lost both. Another shot. Gone. Then came a twist no one saw coming. At 36, he joined the young Phoenix Suns, and led them to the 2021 NBA Finals. He was brilliant, poised, vintage CP3. But the Milwaukee Bucks, led by Giannis, stormed back from 0-2 to win the series. Once again, the ring slipped away. Through it all, Chris Paul kept leading, kept competing, kept the believing. And even now, as he nears the twilight of his career, the hunger hasn't faded. He still sees the floor better than most, still demands greatness from himself and his teammates. And while the clock may be ticking, one truth remains: championship or not, Chris Paul is already a legend. A ring would just be the final note on a symphony we'll never forget.